Insanity, by definition, is being in a state of mentally ill, or, in other words, just plain madness. This term is used loosely between all parts of persons. Some throw this word around when they describe criminals and killers like Ted Bundy or Hitler. Criminals themselves often use this claim to get themselves a shorter sentence. Other times, we throw this word around when someone bothers us, like a classmate or a crude customer. So many people use this term, but when I tell you, is it only because it has so hard to pinpoint when someone goes insane? So what exactly marks the point of insanity? To get a better answer, we should start with the one who thought she might have been, Charlotte Perkins Gilman, in her short story, The Yellow Wallpaper. The story follows an unnamed character and her husband, John. She, under the medical advice to arrest her and confined to a room, she struggles with the constant isolation and less activity, with nothing but a yellow wallpaper surrounding her. There are many signs of her deteriorating state throughout the story, and by the end, we can make a clear mark on her insanity. There are many things within the story that are worth analyzing about the theme of insanity within the yellow wallpaper. What I want to focus on, however, is her herself and her relationship with it. The yellow wallpaper is a representation of her mental state, and analyzing their relationship will directly lead me to the story's representation of insanity itself. So let's start at the beginning of the story. We know that she, the unnamed character, has some sort of condition or struggles with mental health. We also know that she is a writer, as she mentions throughout the story, wanting to write and show people her writing. This story is in the form of her journal entries, and they slowly get worse as the day passes. It is said in the story that she took medicine and was confined to a sort of lockdown in the mansion. Her husband John mentions her condition as well, saying she needs rest and they should listen to the doctor's orders, despite her pleas to keep on writing and do actual stuff. So, they listen, and she is now confined into a room where she first encountered the yellow wallpaper. From the beginning text, we can recognize that she suddenly did not become insane out of nowhere. This case hints to the fact that she was already sort of off, and the situation she is now in only seems to make it worse. When she first saw the wallpaper, she described the paper as repellent, almost revolting, as she got positive anger with the impertinence of it. It looked at her as if the paper knew that it should provoke her. This adds on to her awareness a little bit, even before going a little crazy. Although there is much she could talk badly about, like the isolation in the house itself and her own husband, which we'll get into a little bit later, she focuses on the wallpaper. To finalize, she mentions a figure, quoting, "I can see a strange, provoking, formless sort of figure that seems to sulk behind the silly and front design," calling it a sister on the stairs. So some time passes, and we still see the journal a little bit as we go into now phase 2 of the themes of insanity, I believe. I am better, but it's often that people become much worse before they do. She thought she was getting better, but in fact she was only getting worse, and no one could see it, especially her husband John. John is a lover and for sure loves his wife. However, it might be because he loves her too much that he couldn't see how it was affecting her mentally. She wants to write and she wants to do things and escape the room, but he doesn't let her because he loves her and wants her to get better. She even says, "It is so hard to talk to John about my case because he is so wise and because he loves me so." In any case, he hears her but does not listen to her and just tries to make it better, but it instead only makes it worse and only tells her no despite her pleas for something else. Not one time in the story did John ever agree to any of the circumstances that she wanted to be in. Since nobody else can see her, she starts seeing somebody in the wallpaper, a woman. She states, "I think that woman gets out in the daytime, and I'll tell you why privately. I've seen her. I can see her out of everyone's windows. It is the same woman I know, for she's always creeping, and most women do not creep by daylight. I see her in the long shaded lane, creeping up and down. I see her in those dark grape arbors, creeping all around the garden. I see her on the long road under the trees, creeping along. And when a carriage comes, she hides under the blackberry vines. I don't blame her a bit. It must be very humiliating to be caught creeping in the daylight." As she is all alone in the room, she has literally willed a physical woman into existence. She compares the women to herself, most notably known for their shared traits in creeping. She creeps at night because she is tired in the daylight, like her. She chooses to creep at night because everyone is asleep, and when everyone is asleep, she can be herself, her own insane version of herself, and not be judged or looked at in torment from everybody else, like her husband. As an audience, we already know something is a little off in seeing a woman mostly just heightens that effect. But to satisfy her state of insanity to make herself cope, she must believe that John and Janine, her other friend, are affected by it too as a coping mechanism, but they are in fact not. Near the end of the story, her confinement is almost over. Of course, as the nature of her confinement, she still hasn't gotten any better. In fact, she sees it as worse. Now, at this stage in the story, she truly, fully believes that the woman is real. She believes that she is so real that she thinks it is belittling her. In the end of the story, she tears down the wallpaper, which to her mental psyche, since she believes the woman could be real, we could consider it technically murder. In fact, her actions and nature towards the end of the story almost seems like one of a killer. For example, she convinces Jenny to leave her all alone, locks the door and throws away the key, and if anyone were to see her what she's about to do, she would not leave them alive, as she says, "No person touches this wallpaper but me, not alive." As she tears down it more, it is important to see that she sees multiple women now as she tears it down. As the number of women increases, we can see the amount of her brain is suffering. In an attempt to keep killing the wallpaper, she even bit a corner of the bed. To quote, "It sits horribly and the pattern just enjoys it. All those strangled heads and bulbous eyes and walking fungus growths just shriek with derision. I'm getting angry enough to do something desperate. To jump out the window would be an admirable exercise, but the bars are too strong even to try. Besides, I wouldn't do it. Of course not. I know well enough that a step like this is improper and it might be misconstructed. I do not look out of the windows even there are so many a creeping women and they creep so fast. I wonder if they all come out as the wallpaper as I did." From here, we can consider the wallpaper to be her mental state, and she thinks she came out of the wallpaper. So, in overall, we can assume that her tearing it down represents her tearing down herself psychically. At the end of the story, she is free to come out of the room, but she didn't want to, because anything she could see outside was not yellow. Nothing she could see out there was not her, so she was stuck in the room, finally free to express how she feels. The paper is her, and no one can understand that, and so she stayed in a room she hates, but cannot live without. She took away the problem, but is now the problem herself. She is, but she isn't. Her way of thinking is contradictory and is nothing short of insane, and I do not blame her. Her husband was there but didn't really do anything. She was locked in the room all day after day, again being forced to write her thoughts into this journal, which is the story, with the fear of being caught while seeing the wallpaper over and over and over and over again. In Albert Einstein's words, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. In her case, though, she didn't expect the results to be any different. She accepted it. Insanity in the story is shown as a long, slow passage of time. It is shown as being removed and alone from the things that make you you, in a way to create a new you through limited resources. I can conclude that insanity is the result of our circumstances, and maybe if the paper wasn't yellow, maybe things could have been different. All she had was the wallpaper. She didn't have John, she didn't have Janine, but the wallpaper was what kept her going. It made her angry, but it also made her whole. It made her who she is at the end of the story. It's surprising John fainted at the end of it. All in all, we can conclude that she, the unnamed character, is insane. She was always a little off at the start, but at the very end, we can confirm that she has lost her mind. It is different though, however, that we can sympathize with her insanity compared to others in the real world, like serial killers. We saw who she was, how she felt, and what she thought about everything around her. We saw her journey, and it is sad to see how her mental state was deteriorating throughout the story. We can understand and we can justify, but it doesn't mean we have to like the end result. And that is the beauty of the yellow wallpaper.